And if you're going to be a bear, I feel like it's the Charmin one who complains about the ripples in the toilet paper. I don't think you're a bear in Steve Bear.
I mean, I am a connoisseur of toilet paper.
I know, you like the flavor ripples.
No.
Flavor ripples?
What are they, Lay's chips?
Toilet paper!
Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything else we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Blossom. Blossom went 114 episodes over 5 seasons on NBC. Today we're talking about episode 1, which was called Pilot, originally airing July 5th, 1990. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me as always, the boys, Nick, Ferg, Gordo, and Joe. What's going on, guys?
Not a sitcom.
Whoa.
I have the body of a 13-year-old.
Wait, wasn't this episode not Pilot? Because Pilot was later?
Ferg watched the wrong episode. This is going to be an interesting one. Good thing I went out of my way multiple times to tell you guys which episode to watch.
I watched the episode on the drive, but you said the pilot wasn't used as the pilot.
That was the pilot. It's called Pilot.
Okay.
So you're good. All right, good. All right,
We
so I
watched
guess
the right
I'll just I'll explain it real quick, actually, then, for those of you, listening. So Blossom had a pilot episode that was aired just as a tester pilot, and then later on, season 1 came out. So episode 1, season 1, episode 1 is called Blossom Blossoms, and that was the actual first episode of the first season. But Pilot came out first. We always go by first televised episode. Since this was a televised pilot, it counts, so that's what we're covering. So good. I was getting nervous, Ferg, but we're good.
So would this be like episode 00? Like,
it's technically, it's like season.
it's not
1,
from a
episode
season,
0.
right? Because season 1 would be.
Yeah, it's like considered episode 0.
Yeah, I guess in syndication it would be episode 0. But yeah, if you're wondering if you watched the right one, it'd be that TV show for 13-year-olds that makes a fucking Steve Winwood in Traffic joke. Who
glorious.
is that joke for?
For me!
No, us now as adults, sure. But like, okay, someone SpongeBob or something where they make a joke for the parents. You get that because the parents are watching the show with their kids. Parents aren't watching this with their kids.
I said someday a guy named Ferg's going to watch this and he's going to appreciate my Steve Winwood joke.
Like,
This was definitely a show that was meant for the family to all be able to enjoy.
Okay.
You don't think this was made for like the main focus of the show is a teenage girl?
I think if
And
I
it's a
watched
family
this with
show.
my mom and some of the content they go after, I would have left the room.
I don't
And
mean
then
like
there.
it's intended necessarily that you like a show you want to watch with your parents, but it's a show that you or your parents could enjoy.
I suppose.
I guess
Yeah.
I'm not me or my parents because I didn't really enjoy this. No, I actually enjoyed watching this a lot. This is one of those ones where my notes just say fuck a bunch because things keep happening where I'm just like, fuck, what's happening?
So Blossom was a show, I mean, it ran when we were pretty young, but I remember it. I remember it being a very big show. And I remember seeing a good amount of episodes in its day, but I don't have a lot of like sticking memories as to storylines. But what about you guys?
I expected to remember it more, but I essentially went into this completely blind. Like, the intro didn't ring a bell. She barely rings a bell to me. I thought I had seen this show, but as I progressed, it became more apparent that I don't think I have seen this show.
One thing that threw me off when I watched this, because I have a lot of memories, I watched the show a bunch when it was new, was in 5 years, a person can change so much at that age. So when 6 first goes on screen, I was like, who's this little girl? Like, who's this baby child who walked onto the screen? I was like, oh, that's that girl just, like, pre-puberty or whatever. She, like, is a tiny little kid.
Yeah, and even like if you look, because it was about a year gap before episode 1 comes out, you can see they already aged quite a bit just in that small gap.
Yeah, like, from the age of, like, 10 to 15 or 16, that's a lot of changes every year for a person.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a sitcom, so I
Based
never watched it.
on not knowing the definition of a sitcom, or...
No, I never watched this show. outside of you guys mentioning it, which I didn't think it was a sitcom, I've never seen it.
Why?
Right.
I didn't answer the question. Why don't you think it's a
not
sitcom?
We asked you. You asked
So,
you why
yeah,
you think it's not a sitcom.
There was a
You
little bit of
cannot
a
know.
situation, and then there was a little bit of comedy. You know, we put them together. That's a sitcom, man.
Studio
You
audience.
cannot have awareness of the show. And to clue back to everyone listening, this is an unofficial Gordo pick because Gordo lost a pick in a bet. So we're using this show because he had talked about this in the past. Blossom came up in a past episode. I don't remember which one. And Gordo made it very evident that he had never heard of the show. Assumed that it was for girls.
He said he didn't watch it. Yeah,
It was for
'cause it
girls.
was for girls.
Yeah. Because the
I
main
never
character is a
watched
girl.
this.
And then we all came back and said, well, we all watched it, Gordo. I don't think you're correct.
You know what? We all came back and said we all watched it. I apparently didn't. 'Cause I
Yeah,
don't
see, so you
remember
guys
any
are
of it.
lying, just like you guys lied about me watching Top Gun. So clearly you guys have never seen Blossom.
I will say this, and
Whoa.
we'll get into some examples as we get along through the episode, and then anything we don't touch on, I'll talk about at the end. A lot of things did change between pilot episode and the season actually starting.
So you
So
could
it
say
does
it
take
actually blossomed.
The show had blossomed, yes.
Yeah, different parents, different situation, different like jobs. Joey Lawrence's name changes. Like, there's a lot of difference from the pilot to when it gets to.
Joey Lawrence was in this?
That was the brother.
What? Did you...
It's the younger
What did you
brother.
watch, man?
I watched this episode.
So
Who's
Joey,
Joey
Lawrence, who you
Lawrence?
know now, in 1990, was younger. So it's not his younger brother. He was just physically a younger human being.
He's the one who's
33
upstairs
years ago.
Who
wooing
was
Kelly
Joey
Packard.
Lawrence on this show?
The
oh my
brother
God,
who's
doing
upstairs
that thing
with-
again.
The
Who
brother
is
that was
Joey
necking.
Lawrence? Do I know who Joey Lawrence is?
I
I don't think you do.
No.
I really
He was
don't.
he was in Top Gun.
No,
You remember the
seriously,
TV show
who-
Melissa and Joey?
From Friends?
You know, older brother of Matthew
No,
Lawrence.
it's a different Joey. I can vouch for this one personally. Lots of people are named Joe. That's not just the same character.
We'll also say this. Joey on Friends was a character whose real name was Matt. So
You're gonna break Gordo.
Yeah, but in this, Joey is a real person whose character is not Joey
Who the
until
fuck
later.
is this guy? I've never seen this dude before in my life.
you might
You
know him
the
from
Lawrence
his hit.
brothers.
Mingogna Jr. is an American actor, musician, singer, songwriter.
Do
and
not
record
read his whole
producer.
Wikipedia out loud. We all know who he is. We don't need you to tell us.
The Lawrence brothers were like the acting Hanson.
Yeah.
Dare you.
I have
Good way to put
never
it.
heard of this guy before in my life, and
It's
I thought it
impossible.
was Matt LeBlanc from Friends.
He was such a big star in the 90s, like through our entire childhood.
No, he wasn't clearly.
Yes, he
Yes,
was.
he was.
He had a hit
okay.
song.
I mean, I would argue his brother's more successful. You know, star of Superhuman Samurai, Matthew
That
Lawrence.
would be it would certainly be an argument. I think Joey
Matthew
still
Lawrence
wins.
ended up on. He was the one on Boy Meets World too.
He's also in Mrs. Doubtfire.
He is on Mrs. Doubtfire.
I don't know. I've
So
never
he
heard of
automatically
this
His
guy.
wins.
goddamn kids, too.
Are you guys
Never heard of
familiar
this
with the
guy.
song? There's nothing my love can't fix for you, baby. Oh,
No.
ho, ho.
No.
Is that sung by Dusty Rhodes?
That was sung
See-
by Joey Lawrence.
This is what happens when you spend the age we were in this part of the 90s sleeping 17 hours a day. You just miss everything.
Usually, I'm the one with no cultural touch points for things. I can't believe you don't know who Joey Lawrence is.
No. I would
Is as a
gather that
human.
most people don't.
No, they do.
Oh, you are so incorrect on
Yeah.
this one.
I guarantee you.
Gordo, if there's anything I remember from Blossom, it's Joey Lawrence's "Whoa."
Yeah,
It's the most
Ferg and I have been
famous thing I heard.
going, whoa, this whole
Whoa.
episode so far.
He was like
It was
on
his
the cover
catchphrase
of
that was
Tiger
huge.
Beat and everything. Like, yeah, he was like a teen heartthrob.
No.
Yes.
I
Try Googling the Lawrence brothers. See if that.
No, I
Are
just
we-
Googled it. I just read his Wikipedia. I looked at multiple pictures of him. I have no idea, no recollection. I think you guys are just fucking with me.
He's got 175,000 followers on Twitter.
Oh, cool.
How many do you have, Gordo? I don't know.
Like 300.
Well, I guess it's a pivot real quick. If you want to follow us on Twitter or Instagram, go to S1E1pod or go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links. Every week you can listen to us and follow us. Although at this point, you were probably very frustrated listening to this episode so far, wanting to wring Gordo's neck.
Now we can kiss Joey Lawrence following us goodbye. Thanks, Gordo.
No, Joey Lawrence will understand that 4 out of the 5 is good enough.
maybe I just grew up in a different time. Am I a time traveler?
In a different universe?
Yeah.
No, you
Am I,
lived
like,
within
traveling?
half a mile of all of us. We could throw a tennis ball from Ferg's house to your house when we were kids. You grew up exactly where we all grew up.
He was just too busy playing the Animaniacs game.
Kicking us out of his house.
Well, in any event, I
This
think we
is
should...
hours of Booger Man have just broken you, and you don't remember anything else.
We should probably get into the episode itself at this point. So, to start off, the intro of the show it's just like music playing, and it's video of Blossom doing like her video diary. And I think this was just kind of, I don't remember, this could just be like a pilot only intro. I think it might have changed. But it's basically her doing a video diary through the view of her like viewfinder on a camcorder. And like, the camera tips and everything like that. And you hear this song, I don't know, how would you describe the theme song?
It's Dr. John. It's like poppy
Bluesy.
blues.
And I don't know if you had read this, or when the pilot originally aired the first time, My Prerogative by Bobby Brown was the
Is
theme
that
song.
why it's sprinkled in throughout the episode
Yes.
randomly and then
That
at
was
the
the-
end?
it was
All right,
the
I was
theme
so
song.
confused.
So
It
in
was stuck in my head
syndication,
the whole day.
Me
they
too.
changed it. Yeah. So they eventually fixed the intro, and we see it now with the intro that we've known from season 1 on. And that's why, they use that song as like cutaways and for the outro. Because when it happens later in the episode, I'm like, is that My Prerogative? On the most unfitting show to play My Prerogative on?
Yeah, do what I want to do.
That's a great song, though.
It is.
It's a
It's a
great
phenomenal
song.
They should
song.
have stuck with it.
I don't think it fits here. I think they made a good
I don't think it
call.
fits here, but it is a good song.
I think Gordo would have remembered Blossom if it had My Prerogative as the theme song.
Gordo, do you remember Bobby Brown's My Prerogative?
Yes.
Okay, we got one.
Do you remember Britney Spears' My Prerogative?
Did she do
Yes.
it? I don't think she did.
She did.
I
Well,
know-
moving
I
right
never
along,
heard
It's not good.
Has anybody but Jay heard that?
Yeah.
I
yeah, it
didn't
was
know
like released as a
Unfortunately.
single. Yeah. But so Blossom, played by Mayim Bialik, she kind of has been on like a resurgence the last decade, I guess now, but came back with The Big Bang Theory. Now she has her own show, like Call Me Kat, host Jeopardy. I mean, she was like huge in her day as Blossom because the show became so big and kind of disappeared for 20 some odd years. And now all of a sudden she's back.
Yeah, she like left to be like a parent and do science, and then one day was like, I could just do TV again.
Yeah, she got like a doctorate in like neuroscience or something like that.
When she popped up on Big Bang Theory, I didn't even realize it was her until we talked about it later on this show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't. She's just so different. Like, people
Not
age.
really. I mean,
Well, it's funny because now we're watching in reverse, right? Now we're so familiar with how she looks nowadays. To watch her as a kid, here we're watching the first episode of Blossom. I just see her like adult self in kid form. Like, it's because you're coming at it a different way.
yeah.
But the show itself starts with this exterior shot of the house, which is a very nice house from the outside. And we get back to that shot of her doing her video diary. It's her first ever video diary she's doing. Right off the bat, as she starts recording it, she does it as if it's a VHS tape that you're playing that you purchased. So she screams, FBI warning, and then does her own movie preview of any movie, I guess, that has Gene Hackman or Michael Caine in it.
I thought this whole thing was actually kind of funny.
I
I
did
like
too,
that.
yeah.
Although a video diary is very inefficient. Like, you write in a diary, it takes up a page.
I mean,
You
she's
can have 100
vlogging
tapes.
way before.
Yeah,
vlogging was a
nowadays,
thing.
this is
Like,
super
she's
popular.
ahead of the curve.
Yeah. If she was like a modern day 13-year-old girl, she'd be putting these out on YouTube, and it would be like her vlog that she just posts every day.
This kind of reminded me of a thing that's like a long gone relic of the past too. Remember video dating? Like, we weren't old enough
Oh,
to do
yeah.
it, but like that was like a big thing. You created a video, like a VHS tape, and they would send people out tapes with like 25 people on them.
Yeah,
and you'd write
here's
down
your
their
box
number.
of tapes, and now you have to just sit
so
there at home and watch
insane.
them. There's so many, like, you can find them now on, like, YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
A
They're-
lot
I mean,
of them are the
cringy.
Comcast dating videos that they used to put on Comcast.
Oh, I remember.
Oh,
we
I
used to watch
loved
those all the
those.
time. As
Wait,
like a
we
group.
definitely saw somebody. Oh, I know. Somebody I know was on one once, and I like lost my goddamn mind.
Yeah, I
Somebody I
remember.
used to
Like,
work with.
we would watch these like as a group for
Yeah.
fun because they could be very cringy.
Yeah, it started out for a while. We used to play like roulette with like music videos when the on-demand came up, and then after that, we just decided we would just spend hours watching people's dating profiles on Comcast. And to be honest with you, that is a time in my life where I'm like, man, if you could go back, everything was so fun and innocent, making fun of video profiles with everyone.
So she also gets into the fact that this tape will be rated G, but that might change soon because she recently found out a boy by the name of William Zimmerman might be interested in her. And she describes him as a slightly better looking George Clooney. And then,
Doesn't she say slightly better looking Mel Gibson?
Yeah, it was Mel Gibson.
It was Mel Gibson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that tracked
funny?
for me because I was like, Mayim Bialik, very religious and very Jewish. Mel Gibson, probably not a fan of Mayim Bialik. I was like, that name doesn't age well. Like, she should have picked somebody else.
Oh, yeah. It's funny that I was like, who is handsome at the time? My brain didn't even, like, just filter to somebody else.
This is 1990, so this would have been George Clooney still on Roseanne.
Yeah. Which we've covered if you want to go back and listen.
And boy, was he dreamy in 1990.
And Joe, the line you started the episode with comes up right here because he's talking about, like, and why wouldn't he like me? And she's like, I'm smart, funny, and have the body of a 13-year-old. But, like, isn't this kid like a 13-year-old? Like, so that shouldn't be that weird.
The only time you're allowed to be attracted to the body of a 13-year-old is when you're also a 13-year-old. Like, you guys should be at even level playing field here.
True.
It would be weird if it was a show of a modern person and like a modern person. What am I saying? An adult. If she was 38 and she said, and I have the body of a 13-year-old, then it's like a joke that works. Here it's like, yeah, you should have a 13-year-old's body.
Although I will say, I think the funniest line in all of the entirety of the movie True Lies is when Arnold Schwarzenegger is driving with Bill Pullman and he's explaining that Jamie Lee Curtis has an ass like a 10-year-old boy. And then Arnold punches him in the face. Laugh at that all the time.
I love that movie.
That movie is fucking amazing. Yeah, that is terrorism ruined our chances of getting a sequel, and I hate that.
It did, yeah.
I mean, terrorism ruins a lot of things.
No, terrorism is bad across the board, but modern terrorism, James Cameron was like, I can't make a movie about funny terrorism. It was like, but you did in 1993, and we all loved it. Just do it again. Rather than that than fucking Avatar.
Well, okay, so to get along with this, she starts rambling on, and she acknowledges that a lot of the things she's saying doesn't make any sense, but she's like, but what does make sense? The state bird of Utah is the seagull. Which is funny, because if you were to Google state bird of Utah, it's technically the California gull, because there's different types of gulls that we just call them all seagulls. So I think, had she said that, it would have actually been even weirder to note that the state bird of Utah is the California gull.
Does that mean that gulls just really love salt? Because it's the Great Salt Lake there, and they certainly will go after you for a French
Maybe that's
fry.
why they went a little more inland, yeah.
Yeah.
She also makes a Ted Koppel joke, which I guess, it's super dated now, but even then, like, is that the most topical way to go about it? Is that, like, the pop culture reference you want to pull from?
I mean, he was like elder statesman. He'd probably been hosting Nightline at that point for like 20 years, and he hosted it through the 2000s, so.
Is it the kind of joke a 13-year-old would make, though?
No.
Yeah,
and also his hair wasn't
like a 13-year-old at like any point. I
He
mean,
just had
except
like
for when
news
she's
guy hair, though,
swooning.
not like specific news guy hair.
You know what's funny with her, too, is, you know what she kind of reminded me of? Her in this was very, like, akin to Macaulay Culkin in, like, Home Alone. Like, she's a kid, but her way of communicating at times could be a little ahead of her age.
It was adults writing kids. Like,
Yeah.
that's one of those cases.
Yeah, big time.
Big time.
Big time.
But all this video diary kind of gets wrapped up when she's talking and she hears her parents arguing from downstairs. So she kind of like wraps it up and like heads over to the top of the steps to listen. And like kind of just in time for the part of the argument where the mom's telling the dad that they don't have any time to discuss their sex life.
Am I the only one when they were arguing that expected to hear the dad slap the wife?
Yes. Like,
I think so,
yeah,
yes.
I didn't expect
When they
that.
first got it, she's like, she says like, hearing your parents fight is something no kids want to do. I'm gonna go do it. And then the dad starts like, it was his tone. It was like one of those old like commercials on like for spousal abuse on the TV when we were growing up.
I'm sorry,
I
I
expected
spilled
the
some
next
water.
thing to just be like,
Get him.
No, I don't think they were going to go that route. But yeah, that's when the mom starts saying that she can't discuss their sex life by herself, even though she's been having it that way. And it was like, oh, wow. Like,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 2 minutes into this, there's a mom masturbates because the dad won't fuck her joke. I was like, this is kind of wild.
Yeah.
Again, not a sitcom.
This is a sitcom. That has nothing to do with it not being a sitcom. It's a
X-rated
joke.
show.
It's still a sitcom. It just means it's not a kid's thing.
You don't need to be rated PG to be a sitcom. Again, you don't know what a sitcom is the problem here.
Very interesting considering we're over 100 episodes deep into a show about sitcoms.
So, Gordo, was Married with Children a sitcom?
Yes.
They make adult jokes in that.
And there's kids.
Lots
This
of
is a
sex
child's show.
It's a child's
It's
show,
not-
yeah.
That's
So
the thing.
maybe
It's not a kid's show. This was aired on primetime NBC. The main character is a kid, but this isn't like a Nickelodeon or Disney show.
Like,
I don't know,
adults
maybe
weren't
that's
watching
what's
this, though. Kids
confusing.
are
Maybe-
watching this.
No, you don't think adults were watching this?
No, I don't think adults are watching Blossom. I really don't.
This wasn't aired at a time slot for kids.
Yeah, I just
we
don't...
watched TJF
maybe-
as kids, but like not everybody's parents wanted to watch Family Matters. You know what I mean?
Yes, they did.
everybody wanted to watch Family Matters. It's
Like
the
Urkel.
best.
All right, Urkel notwithstanding, Family Matters is the wrong.
I don't know. Maybe it's just because the main character is a child that it's throwing me off that this is not a sitcom based for children.
Yeah,
Which
but
is weird.
audience
That
doesn't
doesn't stop it from
matter
being a sitcom.
for it being a sitcom or not. It's nothing to do with it. It's still
We
a
can't
sitcom.
keep trying to go over the definition of a sitcom. We just can't do that. But in any event, this whole conversation is kind of centered around the idea that they don't have time for each other anymore and that they're both spending too much time working. And the conversation kind of ends in a way where it's like, well, what are we even in this relationship for at all? Blossom gets nervous and she runs up, the last couple stairs again and goes over to her brother's room. And she's knocking on the door, calling for her brother Donnie. Now, note, I said Donnie, not Joey, because episode 1, he's Donnie. After this episode, he's Joey for the remainder of the series. But this one episode alone, much like the Kessler-Kramer thing, he is Donnie.
Donnie Burger?
How about this? If you say Joey, you lose a show.
This is going to be tricky, though, because his real name is Joey. So if we talk about him as a human and not a character, you'd be all right to say Joey. So we'd have to debate context, but we could roll that way.
It's not like the Kramer thing. That's completely different. When the actor's name is actually Joey, that's impossible.
Maybe you guys are just afraid to lose a show.
No, because I'm honestly going to call him the brother this entire episode
Bro.
we're doing, so it won't affect me.
I was actually kind of wondering that. So the character's name is Donnie, and the creator of the show's name is Don. So I wonder if that's why that was his name originally. Maybe he named the character after himself.
Maybe he struggled with the name Donnie. Like people kept
fuck, it's
going,
just
he just
Don.
kept missing cues, so they went the whole Tony way of doing it.
That's a possibility too, yeah. Or they were just like, we want to name after a new kid on the block, but not that one. And then they just settled on the other one.
Also, while she's waiting for him to open the door, she says to herself, what a dork. And then says, if dorks had a navy, he'd be an admiral. It's like, all right. Like,
Maybe she was
So
talking about L. Ron Hubbard.
she's going to go with these weird little quirky jokes at all times.
It just didn't pertain to anything. It was a joke.
It was very
for the
out of
sake a
nowhere.
joke.
It was for the sake of having a joke and it didn't land, yeah.
Yeah. But eventually Donnie opens up the door, but he's like, hey, I'm busy doing homework. But she notices like that there's lipstick on him, so she just makes her way inside. And there we see that he's doing homework with a girl named Kimberly. Kimberly played by Kelly Packard, who you might know from Baywatch, or...
Tiffany from California Dreams.
Yes.
Serve dudes with attitude.
Kinda grooving.
I already hate the soundboard. I hate it.
I approve. I hate that show so much.
That show is so bad.
You guys are all going to lose a pick, and your pick is going to be the format show changing, and we're just going to watch all, 75 episodes of California Dreams.
No, because I will never put one of my picks up. So
Okay, so we lose Ferg's winning streak because we make him... I don't think there was a spin-off of California Dreams. I don't think we have any other options for that.
Stop calling it Ferg's winning streak. It's not a winning streak. There's nothing to win or
it's
lose.
been
Not a
acknowledged.
game, yeah.
It's been officially acknowledged on recording.
If you're new to our show, I should note that Ferg incorrectly thinks that what we do is a game, and intentionally pick shows that he thinks will all pass, which is not the objective of our show. So as she heads out, she asks Kimberly that is, if he still needs help with his homework. And he's like, no, just go ahead. You can just do it for me. And she agrees and takes off. He's like, oh, she's smarter than me, so whatever.
Straight C's.
So now that they're alone, Blossom tells Donnie that she thinks their parents might split up. And he's like, great, 2 sets of Christmas presents. And
I always looked at it.
I mean, that wasn't, I don't know. When my parents split up, I feel like they almost co-Christmased. I don't think I got double. But she's like, no, this is serious. And she's like, they were fighting about sex. And he goes, too much? If I ever heard my parents...
That's a fucking weird thing to say.
Yeah, like,
This
first off,
conversation is weird in general.
why have this
yeah.
conversation at all? Even though that she heard them talk about that, I would do everything in my power to omit that from my brain. And when he heard it, that's where his brain went. Like, oh man, my parents are boning too much.
Way to go, Dad. Plow Mom.
Yeah, it's just unnecessary.
It's weird and awkward.
And he compares it to, like, all-you-can-eat salad bars. Even if
Yeah.
you go back 10 times, they can't say no. It's like, you're still talking about your mom.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, you're talking about salad.
It's weird though, because if this wasn't a movie, it would be some shitty character being like, it's like an all-you-can-eat pussy buffet, right? Like, that's the thing they would say. I've never heard somebody say, it's like an all-you-can-eat pussy salad bar. The salad bar specifically, like, oh, because her pussy's got a sneeze guard. Like, what are you talking about? This is so weird.
It's because the writer, who we've discussed, was writing for children and apparently has never met one. So he was like, oh, and he had to like scratch it out of his notebook and go, salad bar works, I guess.
Salad bar.
He can't write for children, but apparently he can't write for adults either, because who would say salad bar?
Doesn't
Yeah,
make any
right?
sense.
I feel like salad bars were pretty popular at the time.
Now, if you guys had to equate a vegetable to sex, what vegetable would you equate to sex?
What does that mean?
The eggplant.
I mean, I guess due to
Exactly.
emoji, yeah. But I
You
never...
mean like the act of sex, the sexual organ?
do you
I'd
mean
just
like...
leave that up to your
Do
interpretation.
you mean like I looked at a vegetable and it made me think of sex?
What
Yes.
about a pumpkin? Because some of them look like butts.
See, Ferg is winning again.
I would love for him to win this conversation and not participate.
Ferg has won yet again. You guys
Well,
keep letting
congratulations,
Ferg
We
win.
Ferg.
all lost.
S1E1 champ.
So Donnie thinks maybe her dad has someone that he's seeing on the side. And Blossom's like, well, who do you think that is? And he reminds her of this guy they know named Ted who ran off with his secretary. Blossom asks Donnie if he's ever seen their dad's secretary, Mrs. Young. And he's like, no, but she sounds like she's 114 years old. And it immediately cuts to her already at her dad's office. And you see Blossom asking for Mrs. Young. And when she turns around, you see that she is, in fact, a very attractive blonde woman. Like, typical 90s hot.
Yeah, she's
Blonde was really just the default attractive girl in
Early
the
90s, it was in late 80s. I felt like every like conventional thought of attractive girl was big blonde hair.
like
Yeah.
big blonde
Super
hair,
pleased.
high heels.
I don't know. The second Tool Time girl was a brunette.
Heidi?
Wasn't she a
Yeah.
redhead?
No.
No, brunette.
No, Heidi was a brunette, and Pamela Anderson was
No.
the first one. She was also blonde, and then was Kelly Packard's
Pamela-
co-star on Baywatch.
Are you guys having fever dreams? She was a redhead.
I don't know if you're joking anymore.
Yeah, he's being weird right now because no, she was not a redhead, Gordo.
Are you
You're
sure?
wrong. And if you'd like to bet a show on it, I will.
No.
Kid's never gonna have a show again if he
I
And that's
could
a
have
stupid
sworn she
haircut,
was a
Tim.
redhead.
Yeah,
Am
we
I like-
established that, but she's not.
Am I like having that Berenstein Bears moment here? Like, I don't know what the Mandela effect?
I don't know what you're
Nope.
talking about.
No,
There's a
because the
difference
Mandela
between-
effect is a widespread thing. When this is just you.
It's exactly the point. Yeah.
And if you're gonna be a bear, I feel like it's the Charmin one who complains about the ripples in the toilet paper. I don't think you're a Berenstein Bear.
I mean, I am a connoisseur of toilet paper.
I know you like the flavor ripples.
So, no. No.
Flavor ripples?
What are they, Lay's chips?
They're ridged for your pleasure.
So Blossom tells her that she sounds a lot older and uglier over the phone and tells her that she happened to be in the area, so she was just going to pay her dad a visit. They get to chatting for a little while, and they're waiting for the father to get off a call before Blossom can go in. Blossom to make small talk's like, so how's Mr. Young? And we find out that she's divorced. And she's like, oh, what a surprise. Also finds out that she likes older men. And when she asks Blossom, what kind of guys do you like? She's like, single, unmarried, childless, guys without wives. She's like, oh, I like those kinds of guys too. She's like, oh, you do? It's like, even if she didn't, she's not going to tell you, oh, I'm actually into married guys.
I was a little confused here because she says, like, oh, they get to that point where a man gets to be 40 and, well, I couldn't tell if that was, like, a good thing or a bad thing.
I
Because
felt
she
like
says
it
she
was
likes
they
older
move on.
guys.
Yeah, but I think it was like maybe he gets to a certain age and he's like midlife crisis. He's trying to find something new.
Yeah, what does that mean?
What I just said.
I thought it was the dinghy goes
But they have a
down.
lower sex drive.
I thought it meant they get to a level of success because, they've lived life. So that's where you strike.
I don't know.
Well, I guess then when she
I know
said,
plenty of
you
people who
know-
are almost 40 who have not struck success in their lives. I
gonna
can think
say,
of
I'm
a few
looking
of
at-
them in this moment.
Hey, man, almost 40 is not 40. all
That's
right?
true. We
My
have some
time
time
will
left.
come.
Basically, in a few years, when we're all 40, So as she heads in, the Mrs. Young goes, oh, he's all yours. She's like, and let's keep it that way. And heads in. The audience was laughing. I don't know if he caught it, but there was one guy who went, ooh.
You know what pissed me
No.
off? It's like, she's his employee, so this little shit's coming in and insulting you. You can't even say anything back because you get fucking fired. It's like, fuck you, Blossom.
She is a little
Yeah.
trapped in the moment.
Also, Jay, you mentioned here that somebody goes, ew, there's another very funny crowd reaction scene coming up in a few minutes that made me, like, spit my drink out. I was laughing so hard.
Nice. Make sure to bring it up. As she heads in, the dad asks, is something wrong? And she says, I'm having Kirk Cameron's baby. He's like, good choice.
I think that's the best response. I mean, to be fair.
What are you gonna say, I guess? What's weird is when this came up, it made me think that I don't know anybody by the name of Kirk. I don't think I've ever met anyone by the name of Kirk, like, in my life.
Now that you mention it, I don't think I have either.
Like, it doesn't flag me as a weird name, but I don't think I've ever met a Kirk.
What about your famous captain friend?
There's Captain Kirk. There's
Well, that's his last name, isn't it?
there's Kirk
Yeah,
Hammett
he's
from
James
Metallica.
Tiberius Kirk.
I was going to say Kirk Hammett.
But have you ever met a Kirk, like, out in the wild?
Not in the
Like,
wild,
spoke to
I don't
one?
think.
I feel like Kirk got replaced by Kurt.
I don't think it was replaced. I think they're just
Yeah,
similar.
man. No, all the Kurts killed off the Kirks.
Actually, I
They're
do know
gonna
somebody
team
named Kirk. Through the internet only, but I have talked to a Kirk.
Okay. Was it Kirk Cameron?
It was not Kirk Cameron. He was trying to convert me to Catholicism or whatever, and I was just like, sorry, Kirk, I gotta go. I'm meeting with Bible Man later. He's more fun than you.
So Blossom tells her dad the reason she popped over was she just felt that with her parents being so busy all the time, she wanted to help out more around the house. He's like, oh, well, I guess that this is going to mean an increase in your allowance. And she's like, well, I didn't come here for money. And he's like, well, how's an extra $15 a month? She's like, deal. And a couple things I noted in their interaction, I really like that his nickname for her is Ace. And also that they had like a father-daughter handshake was pretty cool. Like, I don't know. Something like about that I really liked.
I like that his name for her makes it sound like he was at a bar and he forgot what her name is. Like, hey, good to see you. Ace, right? Yeah.
It's
Or if she was
just
like a
weird.
fighter pilot or something.
I was going to say, like, maybe his favorite movie was Top Gun. And he named
just-
her after the main protagonist.
Now
There's no
all
one
I
named
want is
Ace.
Worlds Colliding of Gordo on Jeopardy, hosted by Mayim Bialik. It's like, this fighter jet movie, and Gordo just bombs completely.
What is Blossom?
What is... Whoa.
No, it's weird their relationship though, because he treats her like a son, and normally that would be if, say, she was the only child and he wanted a boy, but he had two, or she was the firstborn and he wanted a boy, but
I
he
would
has
say
two
that-
other sons.
But I don't think he's treating her like a son necessarily. He's not
I don't
doing
know,
anything
the whole,
like that.
The whole
Everyone- they
Ace
just have-
thing and the secret handshake. That's dude.
They just have a good relationship. I think
No, man,
that's
that's
what it
dude
boils
stuff.
down to. As he heads out, because he has a meeting to go to, he tells her, you can hang out in the office all you want. Play around with my files, do whatever, sit in my chair, that's fine. He's like, anything before I leave? It's like, no, I'm good. He shuts the door, and then she goes, Oh yeah, one more thing. Are you and Mom getting a divorce? Which he says obviously when he's out of the room. And they like kind of let it breathe for a second, so it was like it had like a sad tone to it because he's like this child concerned about it.
It would have been funny if he heard it through the intercom at the secretary's desk. He's like, no!
It's a very big topic for a pilot episode, like the idea of the parents getting divorced. I felt like it was a little heavy.
Yeah.
90s, man. 90s is like the divorce decade.
Yeah, I just, for a show like this, and we'll get into something later, which I'm sure you all know what I'm going to bring up down the road with the brother, but just a lot of really heavy issues for a lighthearted sitcom. And I just thought the idea of her worrying about her parents getting divorced is not a weird episode for a show like this, but a weird episode one to introduce you to this family.
Odd pilot plot.
I think that it's weird to do that and wrap it up in one episode, because something like that would be like a multi-episode story arc. I feel like
if they waited and brought it up down the road.
This is also, there's other stuff in this episode too that were like, oh, here, do you want another curveball? Here you go, first episode adult TV show that comes up pretty soon as well.
Yeah. So the next scene, Blossom's in the kitchen making lunch with her best friend Six, who's talking about an argument she was having with this girl, Lorraine, who said she looked like a bowl of elbows and kept calling her Sex instead of Six.
The bowl of elbows thing, for some reason, just made me think of on The Office when Andy was doing Mad Libs. Just like a bowl of elbows seems like something that he would have said in that.
It's a weird path to take on that joke. Yeah.
What does that even mean?
It's
a
just
bowl of elbows.
Kids being insulting, and it doesn't have to mean anything.
Everything Six says doesn't make sense, though.
Yeah. You wouldn't be happy if someone called you that, but also what does that mean?
But like, also not the worst part of your body to be called a bowl of.
Well, the worst part comes in a bag, not a bowl.
True.
So
what about if it was a bowl of butt cheeks?
Nope. So Blossom very ironically notes that Six has a weird
just the
name.
cheeks?
I thought
Just
it was
the
weird.
cheeks.
Quick time out. This episode's like a little too weird, just so you guys know. It's like bizarre weird, and I think it's going to be tough for people to follow along if you're new to us. So I thought it was weird that Blossom calls Six out for having a weird name, having the name Blossom.
Yeah, both
Blossom
odd names.
is pretty though. Like the name, it's like you think of a flower, or like it's feminine.
Right.
No one's named after the number 6.
Right, but to say it's a weird name, knowing that the odds of her ever meeting another person named Blossom, like it might be a prettier name, but it's still weird.
It's one of the Powerpuff Girls.
Oh, how could I have forgotten?
The reasoning for Six's name is pretty interesting itself, too, though.
Yes, that being that her dad said that's how many beers it took.
Again.
All right.
What?
Yeah.
Children's
So,
show.
From what I read, that's another
can't-
thing that they changed down the road. Like in a later episode, I guess she's like the 6th child or something. They change it.
Well, we don't know that.
No, but yes, it's an interesting. There's a
Pilot
lot of dirty
joke.
jokes in this.
A lot of dirty jokes, yeah.
This show is just, the tone is so strange. They try to be that 90s edgy, but still have like the family sitcom like vibe. I don't want to say it's off-putting, but it's weird.
I don't think they found their tone yet. They're working on it, and they haven't found it.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. It would make sense to me if like they didn't even put this one in syndication. If they were like, this was to get the show going, and then like we won't even put it in the package to syndicate.
We talked about that with Coach. They ended up flipping the episodes because the first episode of Coach was so like the first intended episode, not the first one they aired, was like, what is this? Like,
The pilot just makes Coach look like a very unlikable character. Like you would not want to watch another episode of it.
Which doesn't happen here. Like Blossom's obviously a very likable character. They're just kind of getting their footing still.
I think every character in this is pretty likable.
Yeah. Six goes on to talk more shit about that girl Lorraine. And then Blossom cuts her off to defend her. And she's like, well, I heard she does like a lot of volunteer charity work. And Six says, well, she should combine her talents and volunteer to breastfeed the homeless.
Again,
What?
the fuck?
Lorraine, I guess, developed early. And they head over to the table so they can eat their sandwiches that they were making. I know it's just, it's a TV thing and it's placement, but I feel like if one of us were over the other's house and we were just like standing over the island making sandwiches, the odds of us moving to somewhere else to sit and eat them is slim to none.
Well, that sandwich wouldn't make the pat. It would be eaten before we got to the chair.
You would just stand there and eat it. You would just eat it hovered over the island.
Yeah, the island is in itself a table.
This is one of those weird things that I couldn't get my head around. Like, why did they move to eat the sandwich?
Most days when we record for dinner, I'll make a sandwich because I'll be home alone, and I usually eat it at the island. And it seems silly to go sit down at the table by yourself and like get a book or something. You know what I mean? You're just like, I don't know, I'll just stand here and eat this.
He just said, Island Joe.
How often for you is it a ham sandwich? I feel like it's almost always a ham sandwich.
It was a ham sandwich 99.9% of the time, and then I switched it the last 2 weeks to pepperoni.
Just a pepperoni sandwich?
Pepperoni and cheese and mustard.
Actually, I would have made fun of him, but I've fucking eaten a lot of pepperoni lately. It's fucking delicious.
That's my boy.
I don't think I've ever purchased pepperoni as a deli meat. I'll buy like a stick of pepperoni and eat it like as a snack, but no.
Sure, but sandwich pepperoni with American cheese and mustard is a very, very good simple sandwich.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that.
It's essentially salami and cheese with a little spice to
Yeah.
it. That's all it is.
I'm not a big mustard guy either.
I'm not a mustard guy either.
We know, Jay, everything is plain and boring.
No, like, I don't know, if I had to put something on that, it'd probably be mayo.
Sprinkle a little Crispix on it.
Not on that.
Well, I'll send you some mule sauce and you can put it on your next pepperoni and cheese sandwich.
So, the two start talking about this kid, William, who Blossom brought up at the top of the episode. And she's looking for confirmation that this kid does, in fact, like her. And Six is telling her everything she's heard to kind of confirm this. Also, Six talks way too fast, and there was a ton of times where I couldn't understand what she was saying because
I
of how
couldn't
fast she
stand
talks.
her. I just her entire presence bugged me.
Really,
And
I liked her.
It wasn't anything specific about her. I just didn't like everything she was a part of for some reason. I don't know. I can't tell you why though.
One of the few things I remember from this show in general is her character speaking really fast, and it's faster than this later on in the show. She's basically like the Micro Machines guy in the rest of the season or series.
One of few memories I have about this show when I was a kid was having a crush on Six. It's one of the few things, like, I remember that, and I think the oldest brother ends up driving an ambulance. And that's like all I can remember from the show.
It's also tough to be named after a number. Like, you're named a number or whatever when shitty guys will rate women by number. Like, forever. It's like, she's a 6. Like, that sucks.
They should have done a spin-off with Married with Children where she marries the character 7.
Ooh.
And maybe they have a
67.
child. Maybe they have a child that's 11.
Maybe.
I thought you were going to say 13 because that would be both of them combined, but...
No, I was
well,
talking
there's
about
11 from Stranger Things.
So you went Stranger Things on it, yeah.
Yeah. There's my cultural reference.
Congrats.
Okay.
Poor Gordo tonight. You right, bud?
He's having a hard day.
No.
Yeah, Gordo's
Not okay.
Anyway, guys.
So as they're talking, the phone rings, and it's William, and he wants to meet up with Blossom tonight. But since it's a school night, she can't go out, so she invites him over to pretend they're doing homework. Not in the way that her brother does that, so they can just watch TV. That's her intention, at least. And when she hangs up, she goes, well, that was nice. And her and Six clasp hands and just scream bloody murder and excitement.
That's quite the scream.
That was the first time they acted like teenage girls, though. Where, like, 5 minutes earlier, they sounded like 90-year-old women.
Yeah, because 2 minutes before that, they're like, Daryl Hannah is pretty, but she's a horse. Like, what the fuck is happening right now?
I will say, though, when you go back to when we were, like, 13, that's really at that point where I feel like you age up a lot. Like, the difference between, like, 10 to 12 to 13, like, right in that range, you grow rapidly. You are way more adult at 13 than you are a year or two before, like, in a major way. Like, in a way bigger than the gap from 13 to 14 or something.
I think, like, entering your teens in general, it's like a mindset of, like, well, I'm a teenager now.
Yeah, when I think about us at age 13 and kind of like almost the unlockables that we were able to do now that we are teenagers, I feel like we matured a bit. Maybe we didn't actually mature much, but we were allowed to do more.
Yeah, it's a maturity level, as we're all talking now, as we just spoke about that we're almost all 40. I don't think the maturity level is a change, but...
I don't think it's progressed past 13. I think it just kind of, that was the
We hit
peak, and we
13
just
and
riding it out.
Plateaued right there, yeah.
But then it cuts to night, and Mom's finishing getting dinner ready with Donnie and Blossom in the kitchen with her. And she apologizes for not having dinner ready, but she worked late and got caught in more traffic than... you mentioned it earlier, I can't remember. It was some forgettable musician. Who was
Steve
it?
Winwood.
Steve Winwood. Yeah, some like
Stevie
no-name...
Winwood.
Some no-name hack, right?
How dare you?
I couldn't remember. It was a forgettable name, so I think that's why I didn't get it down. Because I'm like, who listens to this guy?
Ferg is the world's biggest blind faith
You're
fan. He's just going to come attack you.
Piece of shit.
Now, Ferg, you being a big Stevie Winwood fan, are you a Traffic fan as well, or just Solo?
No, solo only.
Okay.
Maybe I'll give Traffic a shot, though.
Also, when she tells this joke, she thinks it's hilarious.
I mean, I laughed at the absurdity of the joke, but also her delivery of it. Like, I love when people laugh at their own jokes. I don't know why that's like a big thing for me.
And I think it's important to note that in 1990, the kids didn't find him relevant enough to get the joke. In 1990.
Yeah, but I would say, I mean, that's just kids not caring about something that's 20 years old, right? Like, I feel like if you asked a 13-year-old now if they knew something from 20 years ago, they'd call you a dinosaur. You know what I mean?
I don't know, it's weird. I don't think so, but it's tough to say because we're older and we're not... I can certainly say I'm not talking to a lot of 13-year-old kids. Like, Ferg, you have a young son. Like, is he aware of early 2000s stuff?
Not really. He doesn't listen to a lot of music. He just fucking goes on YouTube.
Those
Plays
kids in the
video
YouTubes.
games.
I mean, that's it now, though. Yeah, I've got family around that same age, and it's like, yeah, it's just games on the computer or YouTube stuff.
Yeah, can confirm with my nephew. About the same.
The death of music. It's only going to be whatever clips got sped up for TikToks.
Yep.
And that's the oldest I think we've all felt this episode. So Mom sets the food on the table and Donnie asks, "What is this stuff?" And she tells him that it's pasta puttanesca, which translates to spaghetti of the prostitutes. Puttanesca actually translates to in the style of the whore. In the style of the whore.
Yes.
I read up on this dish.
Conversation to have with your kids, like.
Yeah.
This is weird, yeah.
Yeah.
I did read up on this dish a little bit. I don't know if you guys did too, out of curiosity.
I didn't. It
Yeah,
looked
I
like
made a
American
bunch
chop
of it.
suey. Is it not American chop suey?
No, it's basically
No.
like it's a kind of a marinara sauce, but they put whatever in it, like capers.
It looked like they
They put
chopped
olives
up
in it.
spaghetti, though. It wasn't
yeah,
like
black
long spaghetti.
olives, sometimes anchovies. But I guess the
Yeah.
thought I've read up on the. I got really curious, and I read up on the history of it a little bit, and more so, why is it named this? And because the translation is accurate, no one's completely sure, but they think that it's kind of like something you can put together easy, and it doesn't really matter of the presentation or whatever. Like that's kind of the best people can assume from it.
Sounds
Better
more
than
like
what
a
I assumed.
marsala almost.
I assumed this one day it just came out of a hooker.
Oh,
Okay.
oh boy.
Like, oh, I don't remember eating that.
So, I don't know when else you could pivot and bring this up, but I don't know if you guys had noticed the spaghetti itself, like they added extra noise to it and it was super like squishy sounding. It was distractingly loud and it had to be added sound, which I don't know why they were like, we gotta get the spaghetti tone up on this. This isn't right.
Well,
no,
it's-
I think that was
it's named
just a product of like the microphones they were using overhead actually picking it up. Like nowadays they wouldn't use something.
It's insane how squishy the spaghetti noise was. You have to go back and listen to it because now that I've said it, I'm telling you, go back. It is bizarre how loud it is.
I'll take a listen to that macaroni
Thank you.
noise.
So now Dad finally makes his way home and he says, sorry he was late for work. He got stuck in traffic. And Mom lets out a huge laugh. And
I love that.
so here's the thing.
It's a quick callback.
It's because of the traffic joke from before. But the first time I watched it, I didn't catch it. I was so locked into the tone of like these two were angry with each other and want to get divorced that I thought it was like a sarcastic. She was accusing him in a way of like being late for other reasons. Like I forgot about the joke already.
You miss a lot of jokes in your first run-throughs on these
I-
shows.
yeah.
I noticed.
And also, when you said that, I thought your assumption was going to be that she was like, fuck this guy, we're getting a divorce. And she was laughing because he got stuck in traffic. Like, she was like,
Oh, no. Yeah, no. I just thought she was almost like mocking the absurdity of his excuse as to why he was late. And Dad's like, what are we eating? And Donnie goes, hooker macaroni.
Again, weird in this show.
I think that's okay. I don't think that's outside of what I would say at that age in front of me. Like, I don't think that's like a weird sex line.
Yeah, I
I
know. that's
mean,
not
you
weird.
don't. Pandora doesn't go back in the box. That's already been opened up.
That's
so.
true.
So what happened is the
Yeah.
mother shouldn't have ever fucking brought up this conversation. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
she
to
should have
me-
just said it was red sauce with olives.
Yeah, she could have just said macaroni and olives, and everyone would have been like, okay, whatever, dinner.
Yeah,
That would be
well,
a shitty dish. Macaroni and olives.
I hate olives. Ugh.
I'm not an olive guy.
Oh,
Nick,
I'm an
you're,
olive guy.
you're the olive guy of the group, right?
I hate all.
Why am I the olive guy?
I'm an
Out of 5 of us, I'm assuming you're the only one who likes olives.
I like olives.
I actually don't like black. All right, so
See?
green olives. I love green olives, especially in a martini, and like with like a charcuterie board or something like that. Green olives, great. Black olives, I can eat, but they overpower anything they're in. If you put
really?
black olives like on or in something, it's all you can taste. And I don't think they belong on or in anything. Like, yeah, pop a few in your mouth as like a snack maybe, but like I wouldn't put black olives in anything.
I think you're
I
right,
love
Nick.
you.
I don't like olives, but if somebody gets a pizza, you need to split pizza sometimes. Like, hey, we'll get pizza,
Yeah,
we'll get half pepperoni,
That's exactly
whatever.
what I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah, if people get olives on their half, you taste olives on your half, even if they're
Really?
pretty far away. That
It's a
flavor
very
drifts.
strong, specific flavor, yeah.
I'm cool with
feel
olive
like
oil.
That's with any pizza topping. It's somehow like through osmosis gets through the entire pizza.
Like, it's baked into the sauce a little bit. But I
Gordon,
don't know,
do
if
you
I
like
go-
green and black?
Yeah. I don't think that black is that overpowering. Maybe it's just me. I mean, I am weird, but I don't have that same thing.
I don't eat olives. In my memory of having them, I haven't had them since I was like a really young child for the most. I've had black olives. Sometimes they're in things and I can't avoid it. But on the visual test, green olives look like they have a stronger taste.
So for those of you who don't know, I have an Instagram dedicated to Italian subs. Go follow it if you want. It's at Gabagool Boston. But I'll have to find the messages. Somebody messaged me like infuriated once because none of my Italian subs that I reviewed had black olives on them. And I'm like, that's disgusting. Why would I ever put black olives on an Italian sub?
It's a good way to
And this
ruin a
dude
sub.
was like, he was like from Maine and like started his own.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, he started like his own Italian sub thing, I think in spite of mine, and only put subs up there covered in black olives. And it just is so disgusting. The idea of a ton of black olives on a sandwich is so vile to me. And this person thought it was necessary to reach out specifically that they were not on the sub.
I do like that you affected him so badly he had to start his own competing sub Instagram.
Yeah. Now, Nick, what do you put on your Italian sub?
Pickle, onion, tomato, diced. It's important that they're diced, okay? Has
Agreed.
to be white onion. And, after that, it's dealer's choice. Lettuce sometimes, depending, has to be shredded, though. I don't like a big leaf of lettuce. And huts on the side. I don't always do huts because I feel like it can take away from the actual flavor of the sub too much sometimes. But yeah, pickle, onion, tomato is really all you need on an Italian sub.
What's the standard meat combination that's considered an Italian sub? Like, proper?
Should be salami, mortadella, capicola. And
Okay.
that's like your three main. They get
What
swapped
kind of
out
cheese
like
is used?
provolone.
That was the most Italian I've ever heard you sound.
Yeah, I know.
That's one of those things
That's why
that
it came
The
right out,
accent.
that would happen to me when I used to work at a supermarket, especially when I worked in East Boston. People who are Italian descent, not from Italy, who don't have an Italian accent, come in and they need something Italian. All of a sudden, they develop this fake Italian accent that would be like embarrassingly thick. It's like, hey, where's the broccoli rabe? It's like, what?
It being broccoli Rob makes it way funnier for some reason too.
The thing about the accent though is like, I don't know, maybe I'm misinterpreting it. Like it that's the way it's supposed to be said.
Yeah, to a degree.
I mean, you like the instance you use, broccoli Rob. I mean, you can say that. However, it's just the word broccoli and the word Rob. Like,
you know what? Which one would kill me? I worked in produce. Was whenever they would say escarole, like they would get so Italian to say
Escarole.
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 And it was like, okay, guy.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
So to transition from this, we talk about how the hooker macaroni's weird dinner conversation. To take on a much darker tone, the next thing that comes up is when the mom picks up the 5th placing that's at the table. And this is when we find out that there's a 3rd sibling. There's an oldest sibling, Anthony, the older brother. Donnie's like, why can't Anthony eat with us? And at this point, because I don't know, I'm like, who's Anthony? Who's Anthony?
Same, yeah.
My drama.
Thank you. I was like, if someone doesn't fucking say it, I'm gonna lose my mind.
But yeah, so he's the oldest sibling, and he's not mentioned until now, and we find out that he has a substance problem. And he's currently trying to stay sober, and he's been spending most of his days like just sleeping and watching TV. And Donnie says nobody would be making dinner for me if I did every drug known to man. And the parents kind of explain that they're just going to support him in any way possible. So whatever it is that he needs to stay sober, they're going to do. It's just, and then he goes, I just wish he was like how he used to be. And the dad's like, we all do. And I'm like, where did this come from? Like,
Yeah.
why are we injecting this
They
all of a
can't
sudden in the middle of the
pick
dinner
a
scene?
lane on this show, and it's actually
weirdly
kind of
dark.
annoying. Like they don't. This one threw me for a loop because I didn't think this character needed to exist. There's already a bunch of like fluid characters on this show, and now they're throwing another one at you who you're not even seeing yet. And I didn't like it. I didn't think he needed to be.
When I
in
think of
there.
a lot of other shows of the 90s, 3 kids isn't bizarre. Like 3 was the standard. 3 or
No,
more
yeah,
kids on
right.
the show is like kind of how it went. It was almost bizarre to only have 2 at this point.
It would have been great, if they just never showed the kid throughout the entire series. You just know he's like the sad junkie that lives up
Sleeping
in the
upstairs.
attic. Like,
He's just constantly sweating it out in the attic.
But it's just one of those, it's very out of nowhere. He's never brought up once, and then all of a sudden, she set the table 4-5, and then goes, oh, he's not here right away. I'm going to just make him his plate for later. And they get into this conversation, and it's too much. Again, this is the pilot. We're already dealing with the divorce thing, and now we're throwing in the substance issue thing. And we're not even developing the story. We're just throwing it at you.
Yeah, we're
Like,
just
maybe
saying,
down
oh,
the
by the
road.
way.
Yeah, like maybe like we meet the character and then we find out, especially if they're going to tackle it in a way that he's already sober now, like bring it up down the road, a couple episodes in, and you can explain it and give it more time to, I don't know, properly go over a story like that. That's an important issue to talk about anyways.
that could be
Yeah.
an entire arc for a season.
Right.
Yeah,
they
exactly.
fucking do it in one episode of a pilot.
Just like a throwaway line at dinner, like, oh yeah, Anthony has a drug problem that he's trying to get off of, and I think he's okay now, but he's asleep.
And
What-
they're also
would've
making
worked-
jokes about it, though. Like, it's dark and it's serious, but then he's like, Anthony doesn't remember 1989. And the whole crowd's like, lol, 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 lol. You're like, pick a fucking lane here, guys.
Yeah. What would have worked better is if they were like, oh, he works the night shift. Like, how hard is that?
Yeah, like there was plenty of other ways they could have gone with it.
And then the topic changes when Dad asks Blossom about her company later. And Donnie says, oh, Weenie Willie Zimmerman's coming over. And
So
I don't
we're
know.
going to guess that he's seen him in the locker room at school, I'm guessing?
Maybe. And Dad reminds him, well, hey, no company tomorrow, though, because we're both going to be out. And when Blossom tries to ask where they're going, it gets a little awkward. And he mentions it's just a business thing that they have to do with Barrie Sloan, who Blossom identifies as his attorney. She's trying to like, well, what do you need your attorney for? And the mom's like, let's just change the subject. You know, we'll move on.
Why
sorry, what-
would a 13-year-old girl know the name of their parent's attorney?
I
Right.
was gonna say the,
The
same
dumbest
thing.
shit.
Like,
I'll say
So
this,
weird.
though. Like, they are of a different class than I grew up in. So, like, my parents didn't have a go-to attorney.
It doesn't matter.
So,
yeah,
maybe
They also
it's
have a
different.
weird closeness where maybe they share that kind of information since they talk about hooker spaghetti and
Yeah, they might be close. Yeah, like maybe he's close with the attorney. Maybe they're buddies. But yeah,
I
no,
think
it
to
was
think that it's Henry Winkler.
or Scott Baio.
blah, blah, blah. Blah, 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 blah.
Bob blah blah's loblog.
So Donnie starts talking about what he's been up to, and he mentions Kimberly, who we met earlier, and how he had to break it off with her because she's too smart for him, because of her straight C's.
I think he was looking for someone with straight D's, you know what I'm saying?
No, he was given the straight D's.
Children. We're talking about children right now.
Kids. But he keeps talking about it. He's telling his parents all about the situation, but we pan over to Blossom, who's kind of looking off into space at this point, and we hear audio of what's going on in her brain, and it's the jury at the divorce proceedings.
I looked everywhere to find who the voiceover was for this, and I couldn't find it
Was
anywhere.
he uncredited? Usually when that's the case, it's like the director or something, like someone who works behind the camera.
This whole, like, voice in head thing, that was very Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
I could see
it
like
was,
Zach Morris having that fantasy, or like someone else from the show.
And it was like the voice of the judge was just basically confirming that like the divorce is final and that they will not be getting 2 sets of Christmas presents. And I thought
Oh no!
I thought that was a little too kiddy for this. It was
Yeah,
one
we
thing
can't
for him
have
to
him
bring
be
it up.
like, your junkie brother doesn't remember the whole last year, and you'll get no Christmas presents. What the fuck is happening?
Like, it made sense for Donnie to say it when he first heard it, like, oh, cool, more Christmas gifts. But in this case, like, now it coming up again is almost like she's lingering on that thought. Like, that's the important part now, which it isn't.
That was the one bright side, all right? Which she was hanging on to. Now all hope is lost.
So now it transitions to later in the night, and it's right before William comes over. This is the first time you can hear my prerogative as background music. So if you hadn't read up on it, this would have been the first time you went, huh?
Yep, I was very, very confused.
Me too.
Six is hanging out at the house with them, or with Blossom, while she's waiting. And she tells her about how a girl they know's parents just got divorced. And Blossom asks, did her dad run off with a younger woman? And Six tells her, no, a younger man. Again, gets a... Joe, is this a crowd response thing?
There's an audience. Everybody laughs, and then after everyone stops laughing, you hear one woman go to a point where I was like, that fucking happened to that woman, and she's having her moment where she's like, fucking tell it. I know what's going on here. She's way too into the ran off with another man thing.
So now Blossom's questioning why people get married anyways, if they're just going to get divorced and hurt each other. And Six is like, well, that's why I'm never going to get married. And then she mentions that her mom told her you can always tell when a man's losing interest based on what kinds of gifts he gets you. And I guess the last Christmas gift that her dad got for her mom was a hair removal system.
I mean, that still says he's interested.
Interested in her looking better, though.
If anything, I
Still
think
interested?
he's more interested.
That's not like the bowling ball named Homer.
Why
Now-
do you bring that up? Because they're bringing that character back on The Simpsons. The one that
bowling
she almost
instructor?
has the one she almost has the affair with. I saw
Interesting.
a fucking article about it today.
It's
Oh,
a weird
yeah,
character to
yeah.
pull back.
Yeah.
Well, aren't they
Oh.
divorced? Not to get off topic, but aren't they divorced in this season?
Are they? I don't know. I've
Homer
watched
and Marge?
Simpsons
So,
in years.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they got divorced or they separated. A couple of seasons ago, I think they did. It was a whole thing.
Oh, I'm very, very behind on the
I
Simpsons.
feel like I would
So
have
am I.
heard about that, and I think you might be making that up.
I mean, but he could be 1,000% right, though, because I could probably, up to about season 14, maybe season 12, 13, quote every single line of every single episode and go through so much minutia, and then after that, I'm lost. Like,
No,
you just
I,
hit a point where
I
you
get
stop.
that, but when Barbie and Ken broke up, it was a national news story. If they broke up The Simpsons, it would be on every channel and all over the internet.
To cycle it back to this conversation a little bit, Joe, you've been with your wife for a while now. Do you put the same amount of effort into gifts that you once did in the early days? Do you put that same energy in?
Yeah, always. I always try to do, like if I think of something, like I have like a running list of things, like mention something, I'll like write it down and be like, I bet I can figure something out around this. So I put a lot of effort into it. I also am a big fan of the every once in a while random flowers at work because they don't expect it. And then also it gets them in trouble because everyone at work's mad at them because they didn't get flowers too. So you get a little fun out of it too.
Random
Jay,
flowers
did you-
are always it doesn't even have to be at work. Just getting random flowers is always a win.
Yeah.
When was the
I
last time
heard
someone got you flowers, Nick?
Literally never.
Ding dong!
Jay, get Nick some flowers.
I'll have to do that.
Make his day.
Get him some
You always
broccoli
hear
rob
those-
and a bouquet.
You'll hear the conversations of like couples who are like, "Oh, we have a deal. We don't do Christmas gifts anymore." I'm like, "Oh, that's not fun.
That
Can't
sucked.
do that."
Yeah, that does suck.
Yeah,
That's like too comfortable now. Like I think that's almost like, kind of aids to what she's saying. You don't want to be at that point.
The only
That's like-
agreement I have, like we both have, is no Valentine's Day. We don't
yeah, same.
put any kind of pressure on. No gifts. You don't have to do anything. We both think it's a stupid holiday, and that's it.
We'll get each other
We
a
just-
card and that's it. and then just
yeah,
have
we
dinner.
just talk to each other. That's it. Or we communicate what we want. It's not a surprise to either or.
Boring.
Not boring.
It's
I like the
romance.
surprise stuff.
What did you do for Valentine's Day?
Yeah, Ferg.
Valentine's Day this year. Actually, nothing that good. We went to the Palmas, and I broke my diet, which I wouldn't do for anybody else.
I broke my foot.
Wow.
Yeah, I was waiting for I broke something. I was like, "What? You didn't tell us you broke your leg? What's going on?"
To show her how much I care, I had chicken parm.
Well, listen.
Oh, you old softy.
That's a big deal because I wouldn't break that for anything, and it's hard to date someone who's on a fucking diet because they're not fun at all. So
That's true, yeah.
Point in case, you.
exactly, that's what I was getting at. Why I brought up how unfun that was for her, so I took her out.
I will say, because I have so many weird food allergies, I can't eat at a ton of places, and I always just joke that I'm like, I'll be adjacent to your food. Like, don't not eat on my account. Like, you get food. And sometimes it would backfire because it'd be like, well, if you're getting food, I'm getting extra whiskey. And then it'd be like 3 hours later, it'd be like, I've been drinking whiskey all day and I have no food in me. This is not going to go well.
But hey, I got you this Burt Reynolds bumper sticker.
So Blossom says her relationship with William could end up being the most stable relationship of her life, or possibly the most important. And then the doorbell rings, so Six runs upstairs to hide. She's not actually leaving because he's there. She's just gonna not be present. And the door
That's
opens.
weird, right?
No, I'm not. That didn't flag me as weird. I'm not surprised that they did it.
Okay, I thought it was weird.
I didn't notice she was even there until the scene after when she said something.
But the door opens and we see William, and he's like a handsome boy. Like, it has flowers on him, and I thought we were gonna see.
I just want the isolation of that clip.
No, it was one of those.
Isolate that.
What I mean by that, though, is
boy.
the idea of the way
so
he was
earnest.
portrayed earlier, and because of the kind of character that Blossom is, I thought he was going to be like a very typical nerdy television character. And especially when he was called like Weenie Willie by her brother earlier, like I was expecting like all this to be about like a really nerdy character. And this wasn't what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah, I will say you expect him to be like the group of like nerds in Saved by the Bell. There's all those like I can't remember the actor's name, Eddie Nowak maybe, whatever. But the classic like 80s nerd with the pocket protector and the broken glasses. Like you expect that kid to show up.
That exactly. So she grabs the flowers that he gives her, and she's like a little silent because he's putting them in a vase and watering them. And to cut the silence, William tells her that her grandfather lives with them and that they had to take the TV away because he keeps watching the Home Shopping Network and now everybody has ID bracelets. Which, again, is like a very outdated thing. Like, that was a thing and now it's not a thing. I definitely
That's such a real thing, though, with grandparents back then.
Yes.
Like
I definitely
my
had
grandmother.
one.
Yeah.
I definitely had like a silver bracelet that just said Jason.
But also,
I
like,
have
this
one.
poor grandfather is obviously older and living with the family because he can't live on his own anymore. And they take his TV away. You're like, oh, come on, man. Like, I work 70 fucking years for you to take the goddamn TV away?
This is all I have to live for.
Yeah.
I guess I'll read my book.
I bought you this ID bracelet.
And he's
take my TV away.
Fuck.
I got you gifts and you're punishing me. Why are you punishing me?
Shut up, Grandpa. Get in the attic.
This is elder abuse, and I will not stand for it.
Yeah, he tells Blossom that that was his only personal antidote that he had. And he was like spending all day trying to think of something that he could use. So they sit down and William tells her that there's something that he's been meaning to ask her. And Six replies, yes, from the top of the stairs. And he's like, hey, how'd you throw your voice like that?
So he's an idiot.
Yeah. Eventually he gets to the asking her if she would be his girlfriend. Which, again, I didn't really expect. I thought this whole thing was going to be a build up to him saying like, hey, can you help me with the project or something like that. I really didn't think it was going to be
I thought he
as
was going to
simple as
ask.
it was.
Sorry, I thought he was going to ask her to set him up with the other girl they were talking about earlier.
Yes, and all of these would have had more depth than what actually happened because
No,
he
I
asked, it was
This is very 13, though, to be like, I like you. Do you want to be my steady girlfriend? We've never spoken to each other before. It does feel very much of that age where you're like, you don't really know what you're doing. Dating
Well, as far
is
as
weird.
her
You're not really
reply,
dating.
I think there is some depth to the reply.
And if she had
because-
spent the rest of the episode acting like a regular 13-year-old girl, it would have made sense, but she
That is
does
fair.
not. And then this happens.
Again, this show wants it both ways.
Yeah, it's silly.
Well, she tells him no, which when she says no, you can see it on her own face that she's surprised because she didn't expect to say it. That was kind of like, that was it, because there was nothing else for them to do. So he's just like, okay, and leaves. So Six runs downstairs and she's basically like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And Blossom's like, I don't know what happened. Like, I intended to say yes, but no came out. And I mean, I guess as far as like depth goes in the show, it's that looming thought of divorce and hurting each other. Like, that's why she said no, because now she has this tainted view of relationships. So she did like this boy and she kind of let what her parents were going through affect her decision there.
Again,
Yeah,
super
but again,
heavy.
It's just like the childlike thing of we're 13, go steady. And the answer no is because she's got a deep rooted understanding of how relationships can go sour and she doesn't want to put him through that. That's,
Right.
again, the weird up and down of this show.
Pick a fucking lane.
Yeah,
Well, we
Blossom.
Don't get stuck in traffic.
Well, I don't think it's a pick a lane thing, right? I just think it's when you look at other shows, like we talked about Roseanne earlier. Like Roseanne, I thought skirted that line perfectly all the time. They dealt with a lot of really heavy issues. I just think this particular show for episode 1 is throwing a lot of heavy at you really early on. And they haven't found that balance in their tone yet. And I think that's kind of the big issue here. So we cut to later in the night, and this is when we meet Anthony for the first time, and he's alone in the kitchen making some coffee. And he adds like the cream to the pot of coffee, like straight out of the coffee maker.
But
And
then
just
puts a
drinks out of the pot.
Yeah, it takes a cup of coffee to put in for the rest of the coffee. Like, what is happening here, bud?
You have
Man's
to,
sober. Give him a break.
would the glass be hot? I haven't made coffee like in a coffee pot
Yes.
conventionally like that in so
Yeah.
long.
Boiling
Yes, it would.
Very,
like-
very warm.
I was like, I don't know if you can put your mouth on that.
It would be very. I make a coffee pot coffee every single day, and
Really?
it always gets left on, like
Yeah.
because like the burner on the bottom.
The plate.
And I'll just go to like grab it to like clean it out, and I'm like, what the fuck? It's so there's a half-inch of coffee in there, and it's boiling hot. There's
Yeah.
no way you could just put your mouth on that.
I had to switch to one that had an automatic timer on it because I would do the same thing.
So when Blossom walks in, they look at each other, and it's like, you would almost think like they don't live in the same house. The way that they embrace and like, hey, like, oh, you look good, like you too. And they hug, and I'm like, don't they? I mean, I get that he sleeps most of the day, but do they?
But did
ever
he
see each
just
other?
come back like Wednesday?
That was the thing. He was like away, like just being like on a bender, like doing his own thing, and then like he decided he needed to like clean his life up and came home, and that's kind of where we're picking it up, I think.
See, I feel like they could have explained that a little bit better.
Well,
like,
yeah.
hey, your
Yeah.
brother just got back. Like, give him a little time. He's adjusting. But you just see them, and I'm to believe, based on what little I know of him, that he just lives there. So to see them like so like shocked to see one another seemed weird to me at the time.
Yeah. They definitely
Does
don't
he-
give enough explanation of when he got home.
Does he live in the normal house? Like, does he have a room on the like top floor with the kids, or like does he live like above the basement, like live above the garage, like Mike Seaver? Like,
I don't remember from future episodes, and here it's certainly not talked about.
Yeah, but I get the feeling he's not in the house proper.
When she apologizes for intruding at first, he's like, what are you kidding me? You're my favorite person in the entire kitchen.
This is another one of those scenes where like it's trying too hard, and another joke what happens that's just for the sake of a joke that has no bearing on anything else, which is a weird thing to throw in again.
With the Keith Richards joke?
Yeah, because he's just like, hey, you know what they say about cockroaches? Like, there's no setup to it. He just
Yeah.
says a joke.
Yeah.
Icebreaker. It's the same as William just needing to talk about the grandfather. It's just kind of a way to get the conversation flowing. But it was funny because basically it's just a cockroach joke and how they're going to survive, nuclear war. And then it's basically a Keith Richards will never die joke. And this is 33 years ago. It's just so crazy that 33 years ago, the joke was this guy's never going to die. And he legitimately never is going to die.
I hope so. But then again, I thought the same thing about Lemmy, and
I feel like you just jinxed him.
I know.
He's gonna
You know
die
what's
this
funny?
week,
Yeah.
so.
I don't want to say what's funny, but when we look at the last year or two, it seems like this has been like when all the celebrities that are like super old start getting picked off. But he's probably what, his 80s? He's not...
Yeah, they're in their
like,
80s.
He's not like near 100, like, you know, when we lost Betty White and a couple other like really old
Just leave
celebrities.
alone.
Why do you bring him up? Like,
You just put that evil into the world.
Oh, it's okay. I can edit the evil out.
Good call. That's why I'm not saying anybody else's name. Who I'm like, it would be sad if this person. I'm thinking of one person in my mind, and this kid in the show was in a movie with him a few years earlier, and I won't say that person's name out loud because.
Okay. She asked him how he's doing, and he's like, good. You know, like, I'm sober, like, and I'm finished with everything. And it was just kind of seems like, again, we talked about, so is that story arc done? Like, I don't know where it's going. Like, he could relapse or whatever, but if that's legitimately over, it's just kind of weird to put all that out there at dinner, and it's already kind of a dead topic because it's over with.
I don't know. Maybe
I don't want to do drugs anymore. It's like...
Maybe it sets up for like future stories, but it's just a weird thing. Like you can have like a sober character, but it doesn't work in this kind of dynamic. Like if they were like adults going to work or something like that, it could work in certain circumstances, but this is a lot of heavy for a kids show.
You know what's strange too, though? It's like he's just got clean. He's struggling. It's like an everyday thing. And she's like, hey, mom and dad might get divorced. It's like, don't fucking trigger him with another like extreme like thing like that. Like,
it's like, cool. So
right?
I'm going to walk to the liquor store right fucking now. Thanks for bringing that up.
Well, yeah, because she brings it up and she's saying how she doesn't know what to do about it. And he actually was pretty good. Like, you know, he's like, that's not your job. Like, they need to find out their own answers. So I guess you're kind of getting some of the things he's learning maybe through these programs when he's kind of giving her this advice that maybe he wouldn't have been able to when he was still in the middle of it. And he starts talking about how he's a rain dog now. That's based on a Tom Waits song, he said. Was that?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the song.
It's an
Joe?
album and a song.
Okay.
But early, like that's probably mid 70s, probably like 75. Like, and
sing it, Joe.
I mean, have you ever heard Tom Waits sing?
No, sing
Tom
it, Joe.
Waits sings like this. I'm looking for the heart of Saturday night. He's like
Sling Blade?
Yeah, he has like the most,
Bob Thornton.
yeah, he's
Remember
really
that
Bob
one time
Thornton.
Bobby Boucher went to...
Yeah. He's basically going for those fried taters. But Tom Waits is interesting, right? Because he's like present in culture, but he's never been like a super popular musician. Like, I don't know if, like, with the four of you, if you saw him, because he acts a lot, if you saw Tom Waits in a movie, would you be like, oh, that's Tom Waits? Like, would you track him?
No.
No, I'd have to see his
Nope.
face to identify him, so no.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's not like a hugely, like, I've got no issues with Tom Waits, but an odd choice.
Still shouldn't have done that. It's just a boy.
And the rain dog analogy is essentially just talking about how, you know, dogs use their own tracks to kind of find their way back. And sometimes the rain washes them away and then they're just kind of lost. And that's where he's at in life. He's just kind of trying to figure things out. It
Like,
is
it is
very
heavy.
Super fucking heavy.
Because again,
Yeah.
that didn't fit in with what they were just talking about. He just brought it up and then he moves on from it.
And it's
Because
also
the next-
coming from somebody who's white knuckling sobriety after, we're guessing, less than a week. So it's like
It could have been
super
very
fucking
recent.
heavy.
Yeah.
And he mentions that he went to an AA meeting yesterday and that they went bowling after. And he finds the concept of renting shoes to be weird. That had no follow-up. He just
Yes.
said that and that was it. So kind of weird. I think all the Anthony stuff's kind of weird. Again, I think there's definitely a place in shows like this to introduce characters that are having those struggles, but it's just they didn't know how to use it and they just brought it in right away anyways.
I was going to say, and does it need to happen on the first episode?
No. Doesn't
No.
need the first
Like
episode.
Ferg said, like I think it was Ferg said, like that could be a good story arc, and they just jammed it down your throat in the first 20 minutes, and it just didn't make any sense, like as to why they did it that way.
Not that it can't be revisited. Like, they
Right,
can
yeah.
certainly revisit that down the road where he's having struggles again. But to just dump it on you the way they did, kind of blindsiding you, because you find out about it before you even meet the character, which is the weird part.
It's like they're throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks. Is like the humor gonna stick? Is like the child angle gonna work? Is like the adult humor gonna work? Like, I don't know.
They're throwing hooker pasta against the wall and seeing what sticks.
But that's what I mean. Making macaroni noises. But no, it's just like, it's just weird. It's just a weird writing style that just doesn't know what it wants to do.
I feel like there's a part, like, especially as we got to the Tom Waits thing, now that I'm thinking about it, the guy who wrote and created this, right? he's a sitcom guy. He's written a bunch of shows, stuff we've done, all good stuff. But like, there's definitely part of him who wants to like go Kerouac on everybody's ass, where like he's got a failed script he wrote that nobody would produce about like a junkie with a soundtrack by Tom Waits that's like this super dark emotional thing, and nobody will make it. And he's like, well then fuck it, I'm just gonna sprinkle it into these teen comedies because that's all I can do the rest of my life.
It's possible.
Yeah, kind of
honestly,
like kind of like the Dracula the musical thing in Sarah Marshall, right?
Pardon?
Right. So
Is that part of Heavy Metal Parking Lot?
no. So while they're talking, they can start to hear laughing from the living room area, and she heads over to the door to see what's going on. And she sees her parents like kind of doing that. They're kissing and just with like a really tight hug in the middle of the living room out of nowhere. So she goes back to her brother and she's like, well, either the marriage is in good shape or they're really happy about getting a divorce.
That was funny, at least.
I'll tell you one thing about this show that I don't know if it's a positive or negative, because we've watched so many of these, and even outside of this show that we do, we've all seen a million TV shows other than Gordo. It's like you every time I think I know exactly where this is heading, it doesn't do that. And it like throws me for a loop each time.
And like not in a good way.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's good or bad, but I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
like, that
okay, this
can
kid's
be
going to be a
good.
nerd. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, he's going to want to ask out sex. Oh, okay, the parents are getting divorced. And every time you're like, nope, fooled you. So it cuts to the next day, and the parents are in the kitchen slow dancing with the radio on. And Blossom runs in and turns on.
What year is this? Like, they're just slow
they're
dancing
just
in the living room?
Hey,
I mean,
that-
They
kitchen?
can slow
Sweet
dance in
moment.
the kitchen if they want.
You
It's
can
just
do that.
weird.
I've slow danced before in the kitchen.
I've done something similar in my room before years ago. Maybe you're not a romantic with your chicken parm, Ferg, okay?
Yeah.
I'm with
I
you,
did
Ferg.
get delicious
Our
chicken
Valentine's
parm.
tradition is chicken parm as
I'm
well.
just
So.
picturing Jay doing the tuck and all alone in his bedroom.
The sounds of the lambs dance?
Yeah.
That was not what I was saying.
Goodbye, horses.
It fucked me so hard.
So she's basically like, okay, enough. Tell me what's going on. A couple days ago, I'm hearing you have this Mondo argument, and now you're kissing and slow dancing. Is this a divorce or a honeymoon? I'm like, well, what made you think we're getting a divorce? It's like, what about your tremendous sex problems?
I love that line so much.
And I really like the father's delivery, because he sits down next to her and he's like, okay, well, in every relationship, there are certain things that are none of your business. And I really like how he tackled
I did like that.
I love
I like
this
that.
dad too. I was so happy to see him in this pilot, and then sad he wasn't. I was like, I don't remember him
Yeah.
being in this. He's in a million things. He's like the dad in Encino Man. He's in Blood
Oh,
and Blood
Oh,
Out.
shit, that's right.
He's in
I
a
was
ton
ready
of
for you to
stuff.
say something weirder.
You know what's funny is I recognized
Blood Out
his
is probably the weird one for me
voice
that I know
more
him
than I
from.
recognized him. Does he voice somebody?
I'm sure he's done voice work because he's got
Because
a.
I really recognized his voice, but I couldn't place what that was.
His voice is actually in the pilot of Blossom for the dad.
Where's the crickets?
Got one. No, I got a quick laugh. She's like, well, what were you doing with your lawyer then? Like, oh, we were there to sell your brother Donnie. But it turns out that they were actually just making their wills. It's like, your wills isn't death wills. But I'll say this. When you go back to when they explained that they had to see the lawyer, the way the mom was reacting, I guess like wills are a weird topic, but they did a good job, I'm not sure if it's a good job, of covering it up so you were surprised at the end. Because they sold it like it was a divorce thing, not something else.
Yeah.
Like she didn't want to get into it, didn't want to talk about it, and
Yeah.
it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, you don't make your will necessarily when you're dying. Like, you just make it ahead of time, so it's not that heavy of an issue. It's just a weird topic.
Do any of you
Typically,
have
that's how it
wills?
happens.
Dude, I don't have anything to give. So,
I guess
Yeah,
because
no.
I own, like we were talking about it because now we own the house, right? Like,
yeah.
once you have an actual piece of, like, it's got to go to somebody. Somebody's going to take care of it, you know, if like something crazy happens. So we were talking about how like, oh, it's a weird thing. We have to like maybe actually make a will.
Are you gonna leave your house to Marty Moose?
Yes, Marty Moose is going to get the house.
He's also going to be the one who kills Joe.
Well, that's how we got the house. It's in the will. Whoever kills me gets it.
I know about your will, Joe.
See, my
Why is his
thought
voice Dave
process.
Coulier? What a cruel twist of fate. That's Dave Coulier as a moose.
I heard
everything you said about me.
Joe.
Oh, did somebody say, Will?
I heard you said I was a terrible comedian. Ooh.
I love that you guys are doing impressions. Jay, how's your Bobcat Goldthwait impression coming along?
Not as good as my Dave Coulier impressions of impressions.
It's actually coming along really terrible. That actually was his Bobcat Goldthwait.
Took a weird turn. Well, it's going to have to come out pretty soon because we're going to see Mr. Goldthwait very soon.
Yeah, when we cover golden showers.
Is that it?
I don't think that's the Ferg. I think you watched the wrong one on
Yeah, I was
Jay's
gonna
drive. Not on the...
Oh,
I
I
told
sent
you
you
to
the wrong
stop
drive.
using
That
the-
was that was my personal drive. I'm the
Also, speaking of
sorry,
gold, this Blossom is in the Golden Girls universe.
as
Or
Blossom.
the actress.
Estelle, the universe of the shows. Like Estelle Blossom goes to be on Golden Girls and Empty Nest, and then Estelle Getty's on an episode of Blossom as
Because I forget, is it the creator of the show like wrote on Golden Girls or
Yeah.
something like that?
And Empty Nest is another one that I'm not going to pick it soon because we just picked Golden Palace, but Empty Nest is another amazing Golden Girls spinoff that I loved as a kid.
I also, I believe the creator of this show also went on to create The Ranch.
He did.
Ugh.
He also
I
did
feel like
My Wife
it's
and
a show
Kids and
with-
the John Larroquette Show. The John Larroquette Show is definitely coming soon.
Is it definitely?
Fucking
Because I
love
didn't.
John Larroquette. So
John Larroquette's the
much.
best. He's so good
He
in the
rules.
new Night Court.
I'd have to look. I don't recall his
Yeah,
solo show. Did it have like a reasonable run?
I think only 1 or 2 seasons. I remember watching it new when it was on TV.
the name rings a bell, but I can't place the face to the name.
If I remember correctly, something about he's in either a bus stop or a train station, and there's maybe a diner, something along those lines. If it'll jog my memory eventually.
Oh, bus wings.
Yeah.
But bus wings.
Yeah.
It was the Throw Mama from the Train TV show.
Owen.
I would so watch that.
Yeah. So sad. No, now I need to look like, was there a failed pilot of that, and who was
I know,
cast
I
in
wish.
it?
Like, there was the 90s where everything got its own spin-off TV show. Why
Right.
did Throw 'em Out from a Train get one?
But it's about the train.
So after she finds out about the wills, it cuts to her doing the video diary again, which is how the episode started. And she's explaining basically the story of what I assume everything we just saw in the episode. And she also mentions once she turned William down, he went and asked someone else out. Guess who? Again, I guessed wrong. I thought he was going to say six, or she was going to say six, but it was that girl Lorraine, the one who should breastfeed the homeless.
Who's got golden bozos, they say.
Yes.
The bowl filler elbows?
The one who called six that, yeah. So, did you guys think it was going to be six? I thought it was going to be.
No,
I didn't.
Six wouldn't
No.
do that to Blossom.
I didn't really think about it, honestly. I didn't have like a predetermined.
Well, she's like, guess who? So I'm like, well, it's got to be someone I know at this point. I
Listen,
only
Jay,
know so
this
many
isn't
people.
Happy Days where they just swap fucking dates
Yes.
left and right.
She asked out the older brother. She just like ends up in like his weird like junky dorm room or whatever. It's like, aren't you 13? Like, doesn't count, doesn't matter.
It starts doing the Silence of the Lambs dance. Yeah. So she's said she's done trying to answer the cosmic questions of the universe, and which leaves her with the question, why do people fight about sex and money? And she doesn't have the answers, but she swears that she's never going to fight about sex and money with her husband, River Phoenix.
I'm
R.I.P.
sorry, when did anyone fight about money?
Well, I think
Fighting
the
about
argument
sex.
when the
initially
very
was,
first part, they argued about money
Yeah.
because when he was like, "Well, without the job, we'd be living under a bridge." So
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
it was basically they're not having sex because they're too fixated on money. River Phoenix, he passed in 93, so I guess I was like, it must be really close to his death, but he still had another few years after that.
Maybe he turned Blossom down and she killed him.
Oh,
Oh, I
boy.
don't like that. I can only ever
Well,
think of River Phoenix's death. They like in the end of Stand By Me when they talk about what happened to him. The end of the movie that makes me cry my eyes out every time I watch it.
that was the conclusion of the episode, and it closes out with My Prerogative again, and we see
Ding, 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 ding.
the end credits, and they're playing that music over it. Yeah, they just kind of cut all the vocal tracks out of it.
I was wondering if like it just sounded a lot like it, and like I was going crazy, or if it, because there was no vocals, and I'm like,
Actually, when you listen to it, it's not a great cut because they cut the
Yeah.
vocals out, but there's parts where you just can't like, get, like every time the vocals were about to start. yeah, that was the end of it. And then, like mentioned, there was a gap. So this pilot happens, and then there's a little bit of a wait before the series is ordered. And there are some changes that go from the pilot onto the actual episode. So since we covered it, I figured, we could touch on a couple things, which we did talk about along the way. Joey Lawrence, who is a real person, Gordo, his name goes from Donnie to Joey, which is his actual name.
Whoa.
Six, we find out her name isn't Six because of the amount of beers. That changes. And I think the big thing was in the actual show, they only live with the father, and it's a different actor playing the father. It actually has a different name.
They get
When the
divorced.
series starts, yeah. So the show starts, past this episode with the parents already being divorced. Parents have different names, and the father isn't like a businessman, he's a musician. And that's a very different dynamic.
Yeah, they're like bohemian musicians.
So to have this family dynamic that they're pulling for episode 1, but then when it actually becomes a legit series, to have it 3 kids living with their musician father, I think that's right off the bat completely changes the tone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And from what I
Junkie
imagine,
brother's still around.
the what? I'm sorry.
Yeah. The older brother's in the whole
addict
series.
brother.
Oh, yeah. No, all 3 siblings are the same. Like I said, the only change with that is that Donnie becomes Joey. But I guess the creator, when the show was initially pitched, that was the idea, was to have a single musician father. And the studio pushed back against it and wanted a family. And for whatever reason, after the pilot, he just kept harping on it and was able to talk them into the change.
The only interesting bit of trivia I saw for this one is that Jada Pinkett Smith actually landed the role of Six.
Yeah.
But backed out of it because she was 18 when she got it and would have had to play a 12-year-old and didn't think that it would have.
That's a tough age to pull.
Yeah,
2
I did
weeks in a
find
row
very
that we talked about Will Smith.
Yeah,
Well,
it was sad
just
that I
Jada
missed
this
last
time.
week's episode because I wanted to talk about the Chris Rock special that came out. Did you guys touch on that?
I think we
Did
did.
we?
I feel like
Vaguely.
we had to.
We
have,
talked
yeah.
about the whole situation. I don't think we
Yeah.
talked about the special itself.
It's funny that we don't remember a week later what we talked about, but yeah, I think we touched on it. And go back, we did, last week's episode was Everybody Hates Chris. Joe hated him so much that he refused to do the episode. So,
No, I love
but yeah,
Chris.
no,
I hate Will Smith now, though.
But yeah, that concludes this episode here with Blossom. And I don't know, do you guys have anything else you wanted to touch on, or did we cover it?
I just want to say one thing. I'm surprised it didn't come up, but Ferg, 2 cast members of a Goofy movie in this. Joey Lawrence and Six are both in a Goofy movie.
Was she Roxanne?
I forget, but they're both main characters in it.
I believe,
I'd have to look it
I
up
can't
again.
remember. Six was either her or her best friend.
Oh, Brace's girl, whose name escapes me right now.
Yeah, now I feel like we have to look it up.
Yeah.
So hold on, let's get
What's
into it.
Six's real name?
It's actually 5, which is weird.
So Jenna Von Oy is her real name.
Joey
Jenna
Lawrence
Von
was
Oy.
Chad.
And Jenna Von Oy plays Stacy. It's weird, Ferg. I thought you were a fan.
I am a fan. Stacy's the
Yeah,
Brace's
Ferg.
girl. I was right.
Who plays Stacy's mom?
She's
I
got
don't
it
know what
going
She's got
on.
it going on.
What were you going to say, Gordo?
So I don't know if it was me. It very well could be me. But if
Most
you guys
likely.
watch the credits, right, and it's going through each credit, watch where it says music by, because there is a big blank space. And then it goes to the rest of the credits. It struck me as really, really odd because
That's because it used to say Bobby Brown in giant letters, but then they edited them out, so they
No,
just
but
left the
that's
gap.
exactly what it looks like. It literally, because it's a little thing at the top that says music by, and then it just looks like there's like a blank area. Like it
They
says
might have-
nothing.
They might have had to change it because of that, because the music got swapped for the intro, so maybe that was part of it.
Yeah, I'll find a screenshot and I'll send it to you guys. Maybe we'll put it
Yeah,
on.
I didn't catch it at the
something.
time.
Yeah, but how could they not credit them when they still used it for the transitions and the outro?
That's true, too.
Maybe he got sued. It was part of it. I don't know.
I don't know.
They still use
That's
enough.
all I
of it,
got.
though. They use the hook of the song. Like everybody hears that. You know the song right away.
But yeah, I mean, at this point, I think we have talked about this for quite a bit, so I think we should get into the green light or cancel. Nick, I'm going to start with you.
The show is funny, but the few points of humor in this show were like the only redeeming qualities of it. It had no idea what it wanted to be. I was constantly lost in what they wanted me to feel during this show. And I didn't like the way it was written. We've talked about this many a times before. Ferg talked about it on this episode. It's very obviously adults writing for children who don't know children, right? Like, it's just an unbelievable dialogue for children of this age. And I understand that you kind of have to do that, but there's a gray area that I think it works better in, and this show is not in that gray area. This is also going up against some like pretty heavy hitters. Like we're breaking out of the 80s into the 90s, and there was a bunch of shows. This show went, what'd you say, 5 seasons, Jay?
Yeah, 5.
So you think like 5 seasons, oh, you must be, pretty good. I think the bar was just lower then, because when you consider some of the other shows of this time period, you have like, the Cheerses, the Seinfelds, the Married with Children, Roseanne, Growing Pains. Like, those were all like 8, 9, 10, 11 season shows. And so I think to go only 5 is actually kind of a failure. And I know the show changes a lot, but I really did not like this episode. It just was totally off the handlebars. I just didn't understand what they wanted out of the viewer watching it, and I'm going to cancel it. I just did not really enjoy it. I didn't want to see more, so it's a cancel for me.
Just to, before we go on, I did want to mention, Nick, because you mentioned it, it was 5 seasons, 114 episodes, though, so that's pretty big when you cross that 100 episode mark.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah,
and
because
because
shows
you
back then
mentioned
were doing 20
Seinfeld
per season, yeah.
I want to mention with Seinfeld, both shows, because they both ran on NBC, there were references to Seinfeld on Blossom, and Seinfeld had some Blossom references in it, too.
That's interesting.
But to continue on, Ferg.
This show's a fucking mess, dude. I feel like it was a lot of talented people that were funny and good actors, but they had no direction. Show didn't know what it wanted to be, and they threw too much at you at once, where it just was puzzling to me. I think any one of these topics would have worked if it was the sole plot of an episode, but they decided to throw it all at you. And for that, I gotta cancel it, because it's just tonally messed up, and I don't think this could have worked if it stayed like this. So I'm glad they righted the ship, but we are only looking at pilots, so cancel for me.
Joe.
I mean, just piggybacking on everything you guys said, right? Talented people, funny, just doesn't know where it's going or what it wants to do. I mean, I think my theory I came to halfway through this, that it's the writer trying to put his failed script of his weird on-the-road movie, into this. I just don't think that works. I liked Blossom a lot as a kid. I don't think I would dislike other episodes of Blossom, and I wouldn't stop myself from watching another one. But going strictly on a pilot, this is not good. This is just all over the map. The things I find the most egregious, too, are like the jokes with no setup and for no reason. Like, that always kills me, where it's like you felt so not confident in what was going on in this scene. You had to put in a joke with no setup for no reason, just in hopes to get a laugh. That's never a good sign. Pro Blossom, but not pro this pilot. So this is a rare Joe cancel.
And Gordo, this is your pick, so how about you?
Wasn't my pick. I don't think that I have anything else to add that everybody else already said. This episode slammed multiple season storylines and story arcs into one episode. I don't need to see anything else because I know how it all ends. So it's a cancel from me. All over the place. Didn't like it. Not a sitcom. Cancel.
For a second, I thought Gordo was going to stop
It's still a sitcom.
It's still a sitcom, by the way. But I thought for a second, Gordo, you're going to stop and be like, I don't have to say anything anybody else didn't have to say. And not even say green light or cancel. Just be like, yeah. I'm fucking done. I'm out.
Yeah, so I'm with you guys. I'm also going to cancel this one. And again, there was a lot of good pieces here, right? I actually really liked the character of Blossom. And I think there's a lot of like components here that would work. I think they threw way too much heavy in for no reason in episode 1. Knowing how many changes happened between the pilot and the first actual episode makes me super curious to want to watch it, but not in a way that I watched episode 1 and I'm curious to see where it continues. So I think I am going to watch the next episode because I just really want to see how much adjusting they did and how much it changed the show. But as far as this episode alone goes, I think there's a reason they did all those changes. And they just realized that the framework was there, but this isn't it. So I'm going to cancel with you guys, and that's pretty rare. 0 out of 5s. We don't have a ton of them.
It's rare to get a 5-timers club
Yeah.
for a pass, but it's real rare to get a 5-timers club for a cancel.
Yeah, so I'm a little
flush
surprised.
that shit, come.
Because this was a pretty big show in its day. It really was. And it just, I don't know, they didn't have it. So sorry, Blossom. No offense. You guys went on to have a good run. And I think you guys realized it yourselves. You guys did a ton of edits and changed the show around before you moved forward after this. So 0 out of 5 again. Sorry to Blossom. You do not live on to see another day. And that's all the time we have for this week, guys. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Go to S1E1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to all our social medias, everywhere where you can listen to us. Rate, review, subscribe, do all that stuff. Spread the word. Tell your friends. We don't know the best way to advertise. So, if we catch a couple of you guys here and there through different avenues, that's awesome. And we are super appreciative to see all the growth and all of you guys who have gotten into us over the last couple of years. But tell your friends. If you think we're a good show, let them know. And have them join the family. But that's it. That's all the time we have for this week, guys. Thank you again for listening. We'll catch you again next week. Goodbye.
I think we got the best poor old man stolen TV set.